because they were confused that I had been sick the week previously with a head cold, but that there hadn't been something dramatic. And I couldn't give them any answers as to why this was happening now. I was quite out of it because I personally think I felt the immediate benefit of the fluids much more than the hydrocortisone injection, which was obviously necessary, but muscle-wise and brain-wise, it felt like such a relief when I had those fluids, that I started to get really sleepy. I just so wanted to sleep. I was on a trolley in my own room, which was good. I called my sister and my parents and gave them all a horrendous fright, which is a whole other thing. My sister was able to come out and stay with me, and I was kept on fluids and given another injection of hydrocortisone about 6 hours later, and then I was discharged. I was in there at about 11:30 in the morning, and I was discharged around 2 AM. They wanted to keep me overnight, but they couldn't find a bed, and at that point I was significantly better. Like, my colour was back, my blood pressure was stable, I'd had the fluids, I was hungry. Their main things they were waiting for was like hunger and a bowel movement to basically show that you weren't going to have diarrhea and that you'd stopped vomiting and all of that. So once all of those things were kind of ticked off, and because I live so close to the hospital, and I think only because my sister was there, they said it was fine to go home, but to come back if something happened. I think if I'd been alone and had to get myself home, I wouldn't have been able to leave, even though my parents absolutely would have been on the road up to me in no time. So yes, that is essentially the story of the crisis. Got home around 2 AM. I found it exceptionally hard to sleep at first because I was full of steroid, but also kind of, I think, processing everything that had happened, and still illogically feeling guilty about missing work. Silly things like that I'm saying are silly, but actually I think they're fair worries. Yeah, I don't know, but my sister and I came home and we had ordered food because I really wanted salt. I was craving so much salt, and we watched Bridgerton season 1, the first 2 episodes, on the couch, because now I realise, like, my sister needed to calm down because she'd been so anxious that I was gonna die, understandably, but also she knew Bridgerton, and that Bridgerton calms me down, but it does because it's so familiar. I love it, and it helped me like regulate and feel like myself again. When she fell asleep like the dead. Like, I've never seen someone sleep like it. She's never moved less in her sleep. It was so alarming. I'm laughing, but once again I feel horrendous because I know that's had an emotional impact on her, this whole thing. And I did sleep very much so, although I still set timers to wake up and take medication and things like that, and take my steroids as normal. So that's essentially what happened and the story of the crisis itself. Sorry guys, I had to change to kneel up because my legs were losing feeling, which means you can see my washing and things in the background, and we're all going to be fine with it. But I suppose if I was to consider like how the crisis itself went, technically everything went as it should if you were to have a crisis. Like, I had my injection with me, I had the instructions, the ambulance was called, I was seen quickly, I was given the steroids, I was given the fluids, and my sister was there. So there's kind of very little I can complain about. However, I suppose there's a few snagging areas that I think have changed my perspective on if it was to happen again. Like, for example, I was told many times that if you're in a crisis and you need to inject yourself, inject yourself. You need to explain this to the doctors because you can't assume that any staff will be familiar with the protocols related to an Addison's crisis because it's so rare. All of those kind of things. And you can't presume that they're going to be able to call someone from endocrinology. But I think all of that presumes a really high level of cognitive and motor function that I lost very rapidly into the crisis. So there was no way I would have been able to inject myself, just purely because of the tremors in my hands. I think also the lack of like logic, like it's not even lack of logic, just the general fuzziness of your brain means that I very likely would have done it wrong, I think. Even if there was instructions, I wouldn't have been able to follow them coherently. I think I did exceptionally well advocating for myself, considering, but there was a clear lack of understanding around the protocol that was meant to happen. Not in the initial staff that I saw and was there kind of throughout the day, but when there was a changeover for the evening staff were really unfamiliar with Addison's. That's no discredit to them or anything, they were absolutely fantastic, but they didn't seem to understand what it was, so which made them really, really unwilling to do anything, even though I had improved from fluids, but I needed more. I could tell my body I needed more. At this point I was coherent enough to say, I actually think I need more fluids. And I was trying to explain to them to the degree I had sweated beforehand, and with the vomiting and all of that, I was like, I actually think I'm quite dehydrated. 1 bag isn't enough. They were like, 1 bag should be enough. And then I was very lucky though, because the doctor on call that night happened to be an endocrinologist. So thankfully everything was fine, but I think I did the best I could. And I think what alarms me about the situation is that if it was to happen again, which I'm told it will, and to accept that because I won't be able to control certain things that will happen to me, I wouldn't, there's no way I can fix the lack of cognitive motor function I had. There's no way I can ensure that everyone is really going to get me the help I need immediately. There's no way I can ensure that there's someone around me who knows what Addison's is, like my sister, who can talk for me. There's no way I can ensure that they're going to look at my medical bracelet, which they didn't even see. There's nothing I can do to make sure if this happens again that it doesn't go disastrously wrong. And that's what I think I'm grappling with post-crisis, is the severity of the situation, which sounds silly when I'm over a year diagnosed. And I would say I'm somebody who is very educated on my health conditions. Like, I would say I'm very proactive about being educated about it. My family are, like, this isn't something that I rely on doctors to tell me everything. I do a lot of research and talk to people who already have the conditions I have, things like that, and try to learn from them. But what I'm learning from all of this is there's nothing I can do to make this situation of near death not happen again. And I don't know how to sit with that. Like, I think that's really emotionally bothered me. It's why I haven't made this video in the couple of weeks since. Like, it's been over, or it's just been a month now. Okay, I'm sitting back down. Sorry, my legs are not doing well today. But I feel like I'm 29 years old and I don't know how to not die. And that feels like there's now fencing around my life and boundaries and limitations that were there before, because I might say I can't actually go on that holiday with my friends because I have too much fatigue and they want to go hiking. I can't do this because of that. But those felt like my choices, even though they were still out of my control. But they still felt like something that might get better. Whereas in reality, with this, I don't think it'll get better. I think this is the situation. The situation is I could be in a car crash and just die because I don't get steroids on time. I could experience a psychological shock that's terrible enough that I go into a crisis, and if I'm in a remote area, I die. And it's not even dying as the kind of end horror. It's the suffering in between, even if you do get help, the potential damage that can be done to you if you do slip into a coma. All of these things are they feel so final. And I think because I'm 29, I'm 30 in August, I see my friends. One of my friends just bought a house. Another one of my friends is in Costa Rica at the moment, is going travelling, I think South America and Southeast Asia for a couple of months. Another friend who's just gone to Lisbon, and where it's super warm, and I know I can't be somewhere where I'll sweat too much. That I can't necessarily exercise the way I want to exercise because I have an interaction of Addison's with chronic pain from Ehlers-Danlos. And I know all of that is because I'm probably still not fully stable on my medication or anything, like I'm still working on it, and it's going to take a while, and maybe in 10 years time I will think, okay, it takes much more to rattle my body now because I'm on medication for longer, but in this present moment in time I just feel very overwhelmed. I'm really, really overwhelmed, to be honest, because I feel like I am handling quite complex things. There's interactions that I can't manage. So I'm trying to control my Addison symptoms and predict what I consider a stress, which my body is different to other people's because I'm autistic, and what stresses me is different. So I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to manage being autistic. And I'm also trying to manage my joints and things like that with Ehlers-Danlos. And then on top of it, I'm trying to navigate my mental health surrounding body image and weight gain on steroids and who I am now, which ultimately leads to quite disordered eating, which is something I haven't really talked about, but that also getting medical help for that, whilst knowing that there's very little I can do about retaining water from these steroids because I need to be on a higher dose for a good while after this crisis, I was told. Just a slightly higher dose, but a slightly higher dose still means you're retaining more water. I guess there's a complex interaction of everything happening that I feel like I cannot control any of it. And it all feels like being kind of on like one of those fairground spinny wheels that kids play on. I don't know, that was a terrible description, but I feel like it's spinning very, very fast and I can't stop it if I wanted to, but also everyone else around me doesn't know how to stop it because they also don't understand my interpretation of events due to being autistic. What impacts me daily due to the Addisons. Is my muscle pain and my bone pain to do with actually an electrolyte imbalance that I haven't caught in time, or is it due to a hormonal shift that's happening at the particular time of the month as a result of my progesterone levels changing, and that leads to different looseness in my joints? I don't know. I just don't know, and that's really such a problem. I guess the simple conclusion of all of this is that I don't have a simple conclusion. I don't know how to... I think I'm someone who's very practical, so I like to take a situation and learn from it and then be like, well, that won't happen exactly the same way again because I've learned something. But actually everything went as well as it could this time, and it was still so far from right. And I still felt so out of control, and I still feel so out of control since, like in terms of my body. Like I'm much more sensitive to stresses and things in these past few weeks. I'm much more tired, my legs are sore, all of those things since the crisis. So I guess I don't have a real conclusion for this video, but I guess I wanted to log it. Maybe I'll watch this back in like 10 years and think, oh, that's so funny, she was struggling so much. In a way, that's so impossible for me to imagine, because it's once again not that just the Addisons, it's Addisons with autism, with Ehlers-Danlos, with an eating disorder, all interplaying and changing how they interplay every single day, whilst I'm trying to like still have a life and work and keep my friends and feel like I'm at 29. So really I just feel very vulnerable, to be honest. Like part of me just wants to be a child and move home to my childhood bedroom and cry all the time. Another part of me thinks that would be the worst thing that would ever happen to me. That's very dramatic, like there's people that are suffering considerably. But I just feel I feel like life is shrinking again after I've fought in a lot of ways to push the boundaries of myself and the world. And I don't know what to do with it. That's the problem, is if I think I had tangible steps of what to do, that would be different. But there's no tangible steps for this, there's just live. And one day at a time. And that's horrifying to me. So, yeah. I don't know if this video is interesting or useful or anything, and like that, it's very long, so it might just be something I watch back. But regardless, if you did stay, I appreciate you being here. If you want to like, subscribe, do all that kind of thing, I don't mind. I mean, I would appreciate it, so I shouldn't sound so indifferent about it. But I think I'm going to stop there because there's no real conclusion. My camera died and I got cut off, so I'm just going to finish this up by saying goodbye and thank you for watching, and thank you for... Some people have left such lovely comments in like quite old videos to do with my health that has made me okay maybe posting this, because when I look at those old videos, part of me is thinking I should probably delete them because that was just at one stage of my journey. But actually in reality, it's part of the process that's led me here, which is why I'm okay maybe filming this, knowing that there's no easy conclusion to the whole thing. But yeah, take care guys. I hope if you are dealing with anything, doesn't have to be health-wise, that you are doing as well as you can do, and at least able to acknowledge that. And I think that's significantly easier said than done. So maybe we should just acknowledge that we're doing our best. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. Bye.